Good evening, Professor Olson, Anthony Garcia here. I'm here conducting my persuasive speech. It's aimed towards commanders on having more effective training to their units and companies. You can just glance around, you have Mateo, everyone in the audience here. So I'm just going to get into my speech. I am Staff Sergeant Garcia. I've been in the military for 7 years. I'm going to be using my credibility to conduct this speech and to persuade you on having more effective training throughout your units. And so first main point I want to bring up is Army Regulation 350-1, Army Training and Leader Development. What it does is govern forms of physical and mental training, institutionalized training in the classroom, and it also outlines the responsibilities and roles for the commanders to have, which you are all company commanders in this instance. So you've been reminded of the required annual training highlighted in Army Regulation 350-1. Each sort of training I'm going to mention in the next bullet is required on Army standards to be conducted quarterly throughout the fiscal year. And so some of the training domains that they have are sexual harassment, suicide prevention training, and substance abuse training. SHARP, shortened for sexual harassment and rape prevention in the military. I found out off of protectourdefenders.com that 1 in 5 women who were sexually harassed were also sexually assaulted in the ranks. The Department of Defense and the Pentagon concludes that sexual harassment is a leading factor affecting the unit climate. And I feel that everyone can agree to that, whether you're a police officer or someone in the military or just someone in the healthcare field. When someone who's assaulted by sexual harassment, you can see a change in climate in the workplace, and it can also create a hostile work environment, something that's not needed in the military force. So it lowers unit readiness. So those particular areas need improvement. Another one is suicide prevention training. The author, Patricia Kim, off of military.com, stated that 138 soldiers died as a result of suicide in last year alone. That can equal out to 22 veteran deaths per day to suicide. It's making it the highest rate of suicide since 2012, since I began my military career. Another one is substance abuse training that needs to be conducted more often. I can use myself here as a credible witness. There can be times where it's unpredictable. A soldier might often have no symptoms or any displays of using drugs or alcohol, but it can come out at the oddest time. Factors usually come from time spent at war. There's also other areas that create that dysfunction for a person, which regard around like psychological distress, and the culture of the military is even one that's kind of inviting. And as leaders, as company commanders, you need to disapprove that, discontinue that norm that the Army culture has kind of set forth for young soldiers. Like I said, it can be unpredictable. I had to generate an AWOL packet for a service member who had spent 19 years, 6 months in the military, was 6 months away from retirement. He displayed a lack of alcohol abuse as well as drug abuse, but there was also no like symptoms, and so it just happens all at once. But those are just things that he's probably carried throughout his career, and he's never looked for help. So as leaders, you need to make that training easily accessible for service members to attend. So now that we've discussed the areas that need improvement, let's talk about one more in detail, which is the study of the Master Fitness Resiliency Training. Off of positivepsychology.com, the University of Pennsylvania and the United States Army both collaborated on a lesson that can be taught to employees, students, and service members, a joint effort between them that can combat against distress and depression, and also those with post-traumatic stress symptoms. And there's 6 competencies in the Master Fitness Training domain, and those are the self-awareness, self-regulation, optimism, mental agility, strengths and character, and connection. So when a person exercises those domains, those competencies, they limit themselves to risk of falling into a suicide type mindset or substance abuse issue. So I feel that MRT instruction should be conducted more frequently rather than once every quarter. And as you know, as in the military in your units, that there needs to be at least a minimum of 2 personnel who are qualified to instruct the Master Resiliency Training, 1 primary and 1 alternate in the rank of Staff Sergeant or Sergeant First Class or above. So I would say that what you take away from this persuasive speech is that as company commanders, you can improve the command climate surveys in your unit and lower the risk for personnel to get into a substance abuse problem or a suicide or a behavioral health issue, as long as you make these trainings effective. And so with that, you need to increase the frequency and also choose competent leaders that are passionate, that are also empathetic, and have good active listening skills to conduct this sort of training. And you also have the authority to make training as often as you wish, whatever fits your mission up-tempo, and ultimately can change today's Army. So I hope that you leave today with the mindset of changing your company and your unit's atmosphere into a healthy and constructive one, and you can also help your soldiers or employees get into some sort of training that can be beneficial to them, and also change the way the Army operates. So, thank you.